The little flame there in the middle of the courtyard, it drew people in almost like little insects drawn to light. It wasn't a large fire, it was just enough to push back the chill of the night air. He emerged from the shadows. He'd been hiding there for hours, and he walked, he kind of moseyed up to the edge. There was a little space there around the edge of the flame, around the circle of folks who were sharing its warmth, and he found a little space there in the middle of that courtyard by the fire where he could still see. He was preoccupied. Preoccupied by what was happening in the room just over there. He could see it. He could see it. He couldn't really hear, but he could see the man on trial. He could see the questions being asked. He had no idea what those questions were, but he could read body language or read faces, and he knew that the people that were questioning the man who was bound, they were not happy. They were upset. They were growing more and more intensely angry by the moment, and so he watched. In his preoccupation, he didn't realize that someone was looking at him, kind of staring quizzically, watching the light dancing off the fire as it kind of illuminated his face a little bit. And it was then that, quite possibly, Peter stepped into what could be the worst 30 seconds of his life. It's in Luke chapter 22. I invite you to turn there if you have your Bibles, if you have a paper Bible, or it's be on the screen here behind me. If you have that flat screen, that tablet, that phone, we don't mind if you use that Bible app. It's okay. It's good for us to look at the Word of God together. Luke writes this way, that seizing him, this is Jesus, they led him away and took him to the house of the high priest, and Peter followed at a distance. When they kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat down together, Peter sat down with them, and a servant girl saw him seated there in the firelight. She looked at him closely and said, "This man was with him." Then Peter said it. "Woman, I don't know him." A little later, someone else saw him and said, "You also are one of them." And "Man, I am not," Peter replied. About an hour later, another asserted, "Certainly this fellow's with him because he is a Galilean." And Peter replied, "Man, I don't know what you're talking about." And just as he was speaking, the rooster crowed, and the Lord looked straight at Peter. And Peter remembered the word the Lord had spoken to him, "Before the rooster crows today, you will disown me 3 times." And he went outside, and he wept bitterly. It's almost tough to imagine, and to be fair to Peter, we really need to think about what his last 12 hours of life were like. It's easy to stand up here and to talk about how Peter is an abject failure and how he shouldn't be allowed to breathe the same air as us because look at him, he can't even acknowledge Jesus. My friends, that is brutally unfair. 12 hours earlier, give or take, Peter is sitting around the table with Jesus as Jesus is talking about Jesus' kingdom coming on earth. He's inaugurating his kingdom, and the 12 disciples who are there begin to talk about who gets what seat in the cabinet. And to be really fair, it's really likely that Peter was the guy for vice president. We're just going to be really fair about that. The way the gospel set this story up, Peter seems to be the oldest. He's in the inner circle. He's one of the three, and Jesus talks to him all the time and kind of sets Peter up almost as vice president. And so if you think about this from Peter's point of view, there is this incredible speech Jesus gives about the coming kingdom, and they talk about Passover, about how Jesus, or God, rescued the Israelites from Egypt. And they're talking about and celebrating this, and Jesus is saying, look, my kingdom is here, and I'm setting up this kingdom, and you're a part of it. And all the disciples didn't get it. And frankly, if we're fair, neither would we have. We would have missed it too. And so they're all sitting there talking about these, what kind of furniture their office is going to have, and who has the best desk chair. And that's where they're at, and they're in their mind printing business cards. And Jesus goes, you guys don't get this at all. But they go out on a mountain, the Mount of Olives. As they're out there, Jesus is praying, and the disciples are waiting, and here we go. We're going to take down Jerusalem. It's going to happen now. Somewhere, Jesus' army is going to come around us, and here we go. And then they look down the hill, and they see these torches and this crew coming up to arrest Jesus. And there's a part of them that goes, oh, here we go. This is going to get good. And Peter, because he wants to be part of the action, isn't sure where Jesus' army is going to come from, or if Jesus is going to do the lightning thing, or what Jesus is going to do, but he wants to be a part of it. So he grabs a sword and he's ready to go, which is a really, really bad idea. Just a pro tip. If you have not been trained to use a sword, don't pick one up just for kicks and giggles. And here's Peter, right? He's got his sword, he's ready to go, and this crew comes up to arrest Jesus, and Peter's like, he finds the weakling, right? Peter finds the guy who is like the least likely, a servant, right? Not even a soldier, a servant. And Peter's like, I got that one. And he runs over, he starts swinging the sword, and the guy ducks, and Peter gets an ear instead of the neck. And Jesus goes, dude, decaf. Stop. Put it away. And he heals the guy, and then they just arrest him. And there's no fire from heaven, there's no lightning, there's no nothing. And Jesus is just beaten. They begin to get a few sucker punches in on him, and they bind his hands, and they arrest him and start leading him away. And the other disciples go, whoa, I got business cards to pick up. And they take off. And Bartholomew heads off, and Matthew heads off, and Judas is already, he took off earlier and now came back, and now he's leading Jesus away. And it's all going wrong. And Peter's entire world is collapsing around him. And in Peter's mind, he is all alone. And he watches as they lead Jesus away, and he follows, and he sticks to the shadows because he wants to see Jesus. He wants to see what's going to happen. And maybe there's a point where this whole script kind of flips, but right now it's not looking good. But if something's going to happen, he wants to be there. He wants to see it. And he also promised Jesus, of all these other suckers, if they run away, I won't. And so he follows, and they get to the high priest's house, and they get in this courtyard, the open area in the middle of the house, and Peter finds a spot where he can look in, and he can see the trial going on, but he can't do anything about it, and he knows he's outnumbered, and all the other disciples have abandoned it. In his mind, he's by himself. And Jesus, the guy that he trusted, the guy that fed 5,000 people, the guy who brings people back from the dead, the guy who heals, the guy who does all the things that just absolutely break Peter's understanding of reality, is sitting there bound and on trial. And this ain't going to be a misdemeanor, and everybody knows it. It's no secret. It's no secret that the people who arrested Jesus are wanting to kill him. It's no secret why the Romans are involved. It's no secret that what's going to happen is, unless there's a miracle in the next 5 seconds, Jesus is going to get nailed to a cross, because that's what Romans do to traitors. And the other part of the story is that when Romans find the rebels and they get the person in charge, you know who doesn't get to walk away? The second guy, or the third guy, or the fourth guy. Rome is really good about making sure we get the whole crew. You don't want to leave someone left over that can restart this thing. It's why all the other disciples took off. I don't know how the arm wrestling went for position 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. I don't know. But it's Jesus number 1 and Peter's the number 2 guy. And everybody else takes off because they're scared. And Peter goes, I'm going to try to stay close. Yeah, he promised Jesus he would never walk away. But alone, in the middle of a courtyard, as Jesus is on trial for his life, someone says, hey, aren't you one of them? And Peter goes, no, My friends, it's a tough story. And the reason it's a tough story is because I think if we're honest, not a single one of us wants to look at Peter and point a finger. If we're honest, not a single one of us wants to look at Peter and go, man, you just messed it up. Because each and every one of us know we would have at least considered doing the exact same thing. Sure, we might have had a little more gumption, but we at least know exactly why he did it, don't we? Let's just call it what it is. Peter was scared. Peter was afraid. Peter was terrified. And we know why. Peter knew if they killed Jesus, he's the next guy up. And I don't care who you are, if that doesn't shake you a little bit, you're not being honest with yourself. Oh, it is so easy to look at this story and go, man, Peter, come on, you got to man up. You got to do better. Come on. Get some hair on your chest, Peter. Let's go. That's not honest, is it? Because we get it. Because even in a world where we are not fearful for our lives, we experience fear, don't we? Oh, maybe it's not we're not afraid that someone is going to take our lives, but we experience fear in different ways. We are very blessed to live in a place where we don't have to worry that someone might find us worshiping, and we don't have to worship underground. No one's going to report us and get us in trouble for worshiping Jesus this morning. We're thankful for that. But fear is a part of our journey through life, isn't it? Here's what's interesting. I find most often for me, maybe you can relate with this, I find most often for me, my fears, they surface in the questions of doubt. I find most often that my fears surface, I think this is true for a lot of people, our fears surface in the questions of doubt. What if? Will it work? What will people think? Do you know what I mean? Let's just have some fun for a second. For some of us, our most uncomfortable part of the morning is when the pastor says, hey, in a couple of weeks, we're going to have a baptism service. And it's uncomfortable because there's a little part of you that knows, yeah, Jesus wants me to do that. But what will people think? That's fear, my friends. That's what that is. Or that moment when in church, we might say something, we might use the word tithing. Get uncomfortable. Why? Well, I mean, if I do what Jesus asked me to do, then will I have enough left over? What is it? It's fear, right? Oh, it's not the big fear like someone's going to get me, someone's going to attack me. It's the little fear of what will people think? How will people respond? If I go and offer to pay for that person's groceries, then will they think I'm crazy? Especially if I say, Jesus told me that I should pay for your groceries, and what are they going to think about me? And they're going to look at me like I have two heads, and it's going to be really uncomfortable. Or if I feel Jesus telling me that I'm supposed to go and talk to my coworker and just check in with them and see how they're doing, but they're going to think I'm nuts. I mean, actually caring about someone else? Who does that in this kind of world? They're going to think I'm nuts. They're going to think I'm crazy. And what happens? It's this little bit of fear that starts to creep in. You know what I'm talking about? Some of you are with me, and some of you are like, that never happens to me at all. I'm above all such things. If that's you, pray for your neighbor because they're getting this. Right? There's these moments where, just like Peter, we might know the right thing to do, but something nails our feet to the floor. And we go, Nah, Jesus, I get it. I know what you're telling me, but that question of doubt, what if? What'll happen then? What will people think? How will people respond? Can I be really vulnerable for a second? Here you go. You ready? Supposed to be vulnerable. You know what happens? What if? What if people don't respect the vulnerability? You know what the scariest moment for me as a pastor is? It ain't standing up here. I know for some of you, this for me, piece of cake, right? This doesn't bother me. The scariest moment for me as a pastor, altar call at the end of a service. Why? Because somehow deep inside, what if I didn't preach it right? What if I put my heart and soul out there and everyone went like, that was a waste of my time? What if God's speaking to me but didn't speak to anybody else? What if, you know what it is, my friends? It's fear. It's fear. And the reason that we struggle to be upset with Peter, the reason it's easier for us to look at him and go, oh, dude, buddy, I get it. I want to give you a hug. I don't want to punch you, Peter. I want to give you a hug. Why? The reason is because we get it, don't we? Because if we're honest, I don't think there's a single one of us in this room who somehow doesn't deal with fear, even those little bits of it somewhere on a daily or weekly basis where we go, I'm walking through life and I know what I'm supposed to do, but what if? What if it doesn't go right? What will people think? How will people respond? What if my best efforts don't get the result I want? Then what? And fear begins to gnaw away at us. It begins to motivate us, oftentimes not to move, but to stay still. It begins to tighten its grip on us. And in our world, we know what the opposite of fear is, don't we? In our world, we know what it is, because we're American. And the opposite of fear is to put your boots on, to stand up and to punch someone in the mouth. because that's what we do, doggone it. Interesting enough, in the Bible, that's not the opposite of fear. Spoiler alert. There's another disciple who years later wrote about fear. And this morning, I want to invite you to listen to his words for a minute because I think they might be helpful for us this morning. It's in 1 John, the 4th chapter. I'm just going to read it for you. 1 John 4:7, dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. And everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God, and whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. And this is how God showed his love among us. He sent his one and only Son into the world that we might live through him. This is love, not that we have loved God, but he has loved us. He sent his Son as an atoning sacrifice for our sins. Dear friends, since God loved us, we also ought to love one another. No one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God lives in us, and his love is made complete within us. He goes on a little later in verse 16. God is love, and whoever lives in love lives in God, and God in him. In this way, love is made complete among us so that we have confidence on the day of judgment, because in this world we are like him. Verse 18, there is no fear in love. Perfect love, he writes, drives out fear. Because fear has to do with punishment, and the one who fears has not been made perfect in love. John puts an awful lot in there. A ton of stuff in there. We're going to take a few minutes and unpack it. The Apostle John, in looking back on the life of Jesus, he's one of the later writers in the New Testament. And so he's looking back on the life of Jesus, and he begins to realize something, to work with something, this thing that the Spirit's working in him and pouring these words on a page. He says, look, here's the deal. He said love, it's specifically in this passage. Every time the word love is used, he is using the word agape. He is using the idea of agape love. This love that is sacrificial. This love that lays itself down for the good of someone else. The love that says, I must be less, and this person, God and someone else, has to be greater. I'm going to sacrifice myself for somebody else. And John starts going, wait a second. Fear is all about self-protection. It's all about protecting myself. That's what gets us in trouble, right? The questions, those doubt-filled questions that identify fear, it's all about protecting myself. What will people think about me? What if I do that and people don't respond to me? How will people feel about me if I ask that question? Right? This makes sense. And so when we have those little doubt-filled questions, what they are is they are fueled by a self-protection. I don't want to look foolish. I don't want people to look at me wrong. I don't want people to think differently about me or bad about me. I don't want people to see my vulnerabilities. I don't want to put myself in a position where I might not have enough. I'm scared. And that fear, that self-protection, that's where that comes from. And so John goes, wait a second, hang on. If we're following the path of Jesus, what Jesus did is Jesus completely emptied himself. He completely sacrificed himself. And you want to know what happens when you live a life where you're completely sacrificing yourself? You have nothing left to be scared for. There's no reason for fear. Why? Because you've already emptied yourself. This makes sense. See, what it is, it's not that, notice what he says here. It's not that the fear doesn't pop up. The questions still pop up, my friends. It's just that love drives them away. Come on now. Last week, what did Melody talk about? Jesus in the garden. And what's he praying? Oh God, I don't want to do this. You got any other options? Can we call an audible on this, God, please? Can we call an audible? This ain't going to be fun. I don't want to be part of it. I don't want to go to the cross. Is there an audible? But not my will, but yours. Why? It's fear. And I don't blame Jesus for it at all. I'd be terrified too. You could offer me a painless death. I still wouldn't want it. And Jesus is looking ahead going, this is going to hurt and it's going to be difficult and I don't want to do any of this. But my life is about sacrificial love. And so the fear, the antithesis of fear, is perfect love. It drives the fear away. See, here's the thing, my friends. As Christians, what we don't believe that the answer to fear is just put on your boots and punch someone in the mouth. What we believe is this, is that what Jesus did and the road Jesus walked is what we are called to walk. It's where we're called to go, and it's how we're called to live. And when we are willing to love each other and to love people around us self-sacrificially, when we're willing to put our own stuff to the side and say what is best for you and what is best for God, and I'm going to live my life that way, you want to know what can't get a hold on us? Fear. Incidentally, it's what Peter learned. If you read the rest of the story of Peter, do you know what Peter never does again? Oh man, Jesus goes to the cross. Jesus resurrects from the dead. Jesus conquers death, and Peter goes, I got it. I know how to do this now. Thank you, Jesus. Let's go. And later on, in weeks, Peter will stand up in front of this very same people who convicted Jesus and sent him to death, and Peter will look at them, put a finger in their face and say, you doggone messed up. Come on now. Woo. Little John Wayne. Right? Why? Because Peter got it. He says, look, if you can't kill Jesus, you can't kill me. The worst thing you can do to him is the worst thing you can do to me. He's already been through it. And where he went, I'm willing to go. I'll lay down my life. Why? Because Jesus taught me how to love in that way. Here's the thing, my friends. Fear is a very real thing. But the answer is not to white knuckle it through life. Did you know that? Fear is real, and we should never deny it. We should never look at someone who's afraid and say, well, if you just had more faith. Oh, stop. No, fear is real. We cannot minimize fear. It's not fair. What we can do is live in ways like Jesus that show people what the antithesis is. See, we are all invited as we go through life to be afraid of things. And sometimes they're really big things, and sometimes they're, if we're honest, a bit smaller. And we all can find ourselves shaking a little bit. The truth is, when we're willing to follow the example of Christ, fear will flee. This morning, here's what I want you to think about this morning. I want to ask you this question. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? And don't worry, I'm going to assuage a little bit of your fear right now. We ain't going to make you stand up and say it out loud. It's a you and God thing. But be honest. God already knows. The only person you're fooling is yourself. What are you afraid of? Here's what I think. I think for a lot of us, we know in an instant. For some of us, it's something God is calling us to do something, to take a step of faith. God's calling us to, I believe for some in this room, God's saying, the pastor talked about baptism earlier. That's you. Doing some poking. And we go, but Jesus, I've already made it 52 years without, can't we go a little bit longer? For some of us, it's a conversation we don't want to have. For some of us, we know that God is leading us in a direction that we don't want to, but God, what if? What if? What if it doesn't work out? What if it doesn't go like I want it to? What if? What are you afraid of? The question is not, will you put on your boots? The question is, will you choose to trust the one who gave his life for you? We are called to live lives that empty ourselves, that put others first, that puts God first. And will you walk forward in love? What are you afraid of? And will you walk forward in love? There's a song that we're going to sing here in just a moment as the praise team comes. But it's a song we sang a little earlier, actually. The words of the song simply say, "It is well." In the middle of a world where there's fear all around us, we're invited to trust the one who gave everything for us. We're invited to believe that the love that he has, the sacrificial love that he lived in and possessed and calls us to live in, it will win. It will. In a world of people telling you, just suck it up and try harder, he says, no. It's not about trying harder. It's about loving more. It's about loving more. I invite you, if you would, to stand as we sing this song. It just seems appropriate. In the middle of the chaos, in the middle of the confusion, in the middle of the hurt and heartache, Jesus, I'm calling you to love, to give of yourself and to love. And when you do that, the fear gets pushed out. What is God calling you to do? And will you trust?